Hello. Okay. So I said, you know what? If you're just going to be a volunteer, let me tell you something. I said, if you decide to take on the role of a volunteer, there's some responsibilities, you know, and it's not just, oh, well, I'm just a volunteer and somebody else is making that decision. I said, no, 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 no. Let me set you straight. You're going to be a volunteer. It is your responsibility, you know. And number two, especially when we're in the business of taking care of kids, right? And then secondly, imagine if you're taking care of kids and it's not your kids. Imagine the responsibility of taking care of other people's kids. It's a big responsibility. Big responsibility. Oh. Let me get this. Is this Pastor Joshua? Yes. Hey, welcome. Glad you made it. Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, it's not just a job. It's an adventure, isn't it? Anyway, before we move on, let's start. Yeah, let's have a prayer here. Let's bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the opportunity of this afternoon and for this church, for this place of worship that we can get together to talk about what is very near and dear to our hearts. Lord, we ask the presence of your Holy Spirit to open our minds, open our hearts as we plan, as we make decisions for what's the most important in your household, which is your children. In thy name, amen. Here, we're gonna start. I'm gonna see. Let's do this group here when Frank comes out. You are group number 1, and Pastor Joshua, right? Why don't you work with this group here, the Bob family, and this is going to be your assignment. Now work on this assignment. It's going to be, take about 15 minutes. Okay, so join this group here. We're going to give you 15 minutes to work on that thing, and then we're going to move with our risk management. Okay, so share what you got. Share what you got. 15 minutes.
Where's the sign-in sheet? Right there. I do. I'm sorry.
15 minutes, I'm going to time you. No cheating. Frank, you're part of this group right there. Yeah, I tried to get this one first, but it wouldn't.
Which one?
This one, this answer. So when I, yeah, so when I,
It pulls up this one first.
it pulls up, well, it pulls up this. I guess apparently this,
And then
and then this one. So, no. minutes, folks. 2 minutes. Yeah, I'm just going to have this. Are you guys hunting for your supper? Okay, folks, hang on to your answers. Okay, hang on to your answers. Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Today we're talking about risk management. But my first question is, what is risk? What is risk?
Possibility of danger,
Okay,
of accidents happening.
That you're trying to.
okay, possibility of danger, accidents. Is that it? It's just a probability test?
Pretty much.
Pretty much?
It's putting yourself out there, you know, it's exposing yourself in such a way that you could either fail or succeed.
Okay, okay. Let's look at some definitions from our scholars. We have Webster's dictionary, and then we also have a definition here from one of the noted risk management. Okay, so it can be what one person said, the possibility of danger, loss, injuries, or exposing yourself. Okay, so risk is you're exposing yourself to the danger of loss, injury. Okay, another way to look at it is it's the measure of possibilities that in the future are surprising because it's different than what you expected. That's an interesting definition. Okay, so that expands it a little bit more because now we're looking at, well, in order to have expectations, I had to have a plan. So somehow planning gets in there. But what we're talking about today is risk management. Okay? So risk management That's a process. Okay? And it's a process of this and your activities for your organization to minimize and prevent, when possible, losses, right? Okay, so that's what risk management is. So if we take that definition of risk management, there are actually 3 main steps in the process of risk management. Your first is risk identification. Okay, and that's part of your planning, right? That's why you plan, because you can identify, oh, okay. The second is risk control. So controlling is you think, how can I prevent? Okay, what can I do to minimize this risk or prevent it? But the reality is there are some things that we cannot control, and there are some things that we cannot prevent. And so that's why we have another step, which is risk financing. What does that mean, risk financing? Insurance, exactly. Okay.
Is this going to cost?
Yeah, no, because that is the purpose of insurance, okay? Insurance is not for the things that you should have prevented or should have controlled. Because you know what? Even if you have insurance, when they're looking at damages in a legal perspective, they reduce those damages, okay, based on, okay, both parties were at fault, perhaps, but you can get increased damages if there was something that could have been prevented but was not. Okay? So your risk of loss increases if you don't take all of those steps in your process. Whoops. Okay, so let's start out here with the first step, and that is our risk identification. Okay? And here in pathfinding, all the components of identifying risk is planning. Okay, that's the very first step. You have to plan your activities, your events, and then you have to plan the details. Okay, what's involved, have everything, you have to have all the logistic pieces, right? And then you have to plan for the unexpected, plan for emergencies, and plan for contingencies. Okay, what's the difference between when we say, oh, what's a contingency plan? What does that mean?
Just in case.
Okay, is it just in case? What do you ask? Contingency. The question you're asking is, what if? Okay, what if this happens? What would my response be? Okay, that's contingency planning. And so you always have to think about what is foreseeable. What are the dangers, the risks? What is foreseeable? And that's the legal standard that is used when they're evaluating, risk management types of issues. And so when you're trying to decide and look at all of those risks, you have to look at, okay, how can I avoid? How can I prevent? How can I make sure there's not a problem? And then, of course, what insurance do I need to have in place? Because things will happen, right? Isn't that why we have automobile insurance for our cars. We have insurance on our homes. You know, things that are precious to us. Well, what about the children that we're taking care of? Even more important, okay, that we have insurance in place to protect them too.
So let me ask you, finish this sentence. Okay, finish this sentence. If you fail to plan,
You plan to fail.
Yep.
if you fail to plan, you fail to plan, right? Or you're what?
You plan to fail.
That's something that we say over and over and over in Pathfinders and in Adventures as well, you know. Part of that is, here are some of the categories that we will be looking at. Communication, okay? Now, in part of the experiences that I gave you, the group, we'll talk about that. How to evaluate risks. Supervision, what's acceptable supervision? Okay? There is a formula for that. The next is qualifications. Okay? Equipment, we'll talk a little bit about equipment. And we're going to talk about resources. Okay? Each of those categories here. Okay, you guys got that? So we're going to go to each one of those. Break it down as much as you can. Now, as we go along, you know, we're going to throw in some things regarding going to Gillette at the Camporee. Okay? But as we talk about risk management, it will also apply not just for Camporee. It applies for everything that you're going to be doing in the church, outside of the church, when you're dealing with the community, when you're bringing in, when you're having an outreach and you're bringing in the community into the church, you know. So a couple of things that we look at in risk management: how to protect yourself, okay, how to keep yourself covered, how to keep the church covered and protected, and also, and at the very least, how to keep our children protected. Not just your own, but everybody else's children that you are caring for, that's in your custody. Okay? Now you see where I'm getting at? You're not just a volunteer. Okay? You're not just a volunteer. Serious stuff, folks. Okay? So we're going to start with these three areas. Establishing screening and orientation procedures, first of all, in staff volunteers, followed by Pathfinders, and with parents. Marion?
Okay. So all of you have gone through basic staff training, and so you already have, volunteers, all of our staff have to go through the background check. And they have to have their sterling, background. So here I am, the director. Oh, good. You have your sterling? Okay, great. Is that all we need? But unfortunately, what has happened is since that process has been put into place, it used to be that there was a form the volunteer filled out, and then the director of the club would check references if they didn't know the person very well. And so there was more of a screening that took place. But now we delegate it all to Sterling, but we still have a responsibility because, as you'll see, you have to look at what is the personality of my staff makeup. Remember when we talked about every different personalities, right? Okay? Depending on different personalities, they're going to make decisions differently. They're going to supervise kids differently. Okay, so you want to know, what's the personalities so I know what roles and responsibilities that are appropriate for that staff. what are their qualifications? And qualifications, you're looking at two things. You have professional qualifications, because, a lot of times we're teaching honors, okay? So you can have someone, we're going to have an activity, we're going to have a baseball game or a basketball game. Well, if they're the coach, okay, or they've done coaching before, then that's a good person, right? You also want to look at experience. What is their experience with club ministries, adventures, Pathfinders? What about children's ministries? Are they involved in other children's ministries in the church? Okay, that tells you a lot. But remember, yes, it's nice to have somebody that has a lot of experience, but that's usually the person that is spread very, very thin. Okay? Have you ever been on the nominating committee at the church? What happens? You make phone call after phone call, and someone says, "Oh, call Don, he'll do it." Okay? It's the same people that volunteers that get slotted into the multiple ministries that we have within the church. And so you need to think about that. Is it unrealistic, okay, to have more responsibilities with this staff person? Are they spread too thin? Okay? And then you also want to think about, how are we going to work with them? So once you've thought about your staff and you've kind of screened them, it's just as important to screen your Pathfinders. I know, and a lot of times we don't think about that, because we say, oh, our Pathfinder Club, it is an outreach ministry, right? And so we want to have anybody who wants to come. Well, so what are we screening the kids for? What kinds of things do we want to know about our Pathfinders? Other than what they like to eat and what they like to do for fun. What kinds of things do, really, as a staff person, what is important for you to know about your Pathfinders?
If they're aggressive or passive.
Okay. So yeah, what is their temperament, What about, I know this has never happened in your club, right? You have these kids that when they are with their family, they're fine. But you get these two kids together in Pathfinders, and they escalate each other, right? They become very rambunctious. They get into mischief. Okay? So that's something else that you want to know, okay? You want to know, okay, who are their friends? Are there certain combinations that need more supervision? Okay? The other things that you want to know about your kids, what is their family situation? See, nowadays, we have multiple parents. Who has physical custody? Who has legal custody? Who's the appropriate person to communicate with, which we'll be talking about when we talk about communication. And sometimes it's difficult, particularly if you don't know the kids very well. You don't want to pry, but at the same time, that's important information for you to know. Okay. So the big question that we always have to ask is, if the child is, if the Pathfinder Club is the only connection that that child has with the church, how important is that versus the impact that having that child in your club will have on your club? And that sometimes that's a very difficult situation. Okay, why don't you read the fact pattern?
Marion talked a little bit about behavioral, concerns. Somebody must know something about this child, So, maybe I remember asking the teens, hey, does anybody know so-and-so? What do you think, what they're like? Any issues they're concerned? And sometimes we have to ask their parents, Let me give you an example here and see what questions would come up in your mind, okay? Teens are playing floor hockey in the gym. Team A, who's 12 years old, becomes offended by Team B, 13 years old, okay? Team A swings his hockey stick at the Team B, striking him in the head and causing him to lose his eye. Any questions so far? If you are the risk manager, any ideas? What are some of the things that come to mind? Yikes. Other than yikes. Lawsuit? Well, that's a big one. How about the question, who was watching them? Supervision?
Yep.
That can happen very fast.
And
Who's watching?
were they wearing any protective gear?
Yes.
Who was
Okay.
supervising?
Yep.
Okay, results, demand for $1.5 million for the loss of an eye. Okay? Defense costs to litigate this, $9,500. Setup costs, $180,000, settled in 5 months. The similar case for this, $1.4 million. Teen A had a history of anger outbursts and fighting with others. Can you imagine risk management saying, did anybody check out this kid? Ask about any references? Does anybody know this child? In other words, what did you do? What did you do about this?
But there's another cost. Yes, this is a lot of money, right? And we say, oh, okay, that's why we had insurance. Think of the devastation within the church, the families that were involved, and the other kids that are friends. That is the impact is severe. And a lot of times we think of, oh yeah, the cost. Oh, the damage that it causes within the church is even much longer, much more severe. Okay, you also have to look at what are the special needs of the kids. And so what do we mean by special needs?
Could be medication, could be physical condition that
Okay.
limits them.
Yeah. Could be autism. It could be all kinds of things, right? And so here we have a law that says, the Americans with Disability Act, that we have to make reasonable accommodations. And sometimes we're not aware. I mean, I have had kids in the club for quite a while, and it's not until, something's just not right, and then you find out, oh, this child is dyslexic. Because I didn't know that. And then what you find is kids pick up on those kinds of things, limitations, difficulties that someone have, and that's when you have bullying and teasing and ostracizing. And so it's really important to consider that in your clubs, in your programs. You have to screen your kids. You wouldn't know that if you're just waiting. Okay, yeah, if I walk in with my guide dog, it's pretty obvious that I have a limitation. But there's a lot of our kids in our programs that they look normal, and you don't know that there's a special need. What about the emotional needs? And nowadays, that's even more and more, within our clubs that we're seeing. And we're not trained, in those areas. And so you have to think about, like I said, is this a good place for this person to be in the club? And it's okay to sometimes say no.
I mean, we've had times in our club where we had to ask the question, is this child, is this teen appropriate for us? And if we take on that responsibility, we take it on as a club. Everybody gets involved.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's responsibility. And because like I said before, trying to protect the church, protect yourself, protect the child that's in your care and custody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And it's also important when you're looking at the kids, what is their commitment? How many times have you had kids in the club because the parents said, you're going to go to Pathfinders?
Yes.
Okay? And they really don't want to be there.
And that's kind of like one apple spoils the whole.
Yeah. Yeah, because what happens is all of the staff are spending all of their energy on one Pathfinder that doesn't even want to be there and not ministering to all the others in the group. I mean, that one Pathfinder will take up 90% of your time. Right?
And sometimes when they are forced to come and they don't want to be there, and hopefully you pick up on it, some of the staff pick up on it, and they touch base with them and say, hey, what's going on? He goes, oh, I got to do this homework. Oh, okay. Why don't you use the time while you're here in Pathfinders, go off to the side and finish your homework. Oh, can I do that? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, that says an awful lot. I mean, the fact that you're here, we're glad to help you, but I know by the time you get through with Pathfinders and have to go home, it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I stay up till 11 o'clock at night trying to finish my homework, and I can't think straight. Then I got to get up at 5 or at 6 and
Start another day.
yeah. So what are those needs? No, take your time. Use the time here in Pathfinders then to finish your work. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Do it. Now, the last category, Marion,
is screening the parents. Okay? And you do have to screen the parents, okay? What are the expectations of the parents? And that's why it's really important to have meetings at the beginning of the year so that everybody's on the same page. I mean, do you know how many times we had Pathfinders that the parents' expectation was, oh yeah, Wednesday night, I can drop them off, I can go shopping, I can go out, I have free time, and so the club's over and everybody's gone. Do you know how many times we had to take carload of kids to our house and call parents and say, okay, they're over here? Because, the parents were not, their expectation was, oh, okay, well, when Pathfinders is over, the Gamundoys, they'll just take them over to their house, and we'll just pick them up there, okay? And so you have to, these are the expectations, okay? What is the commitment from the parents? Are they supportive or not? And you may have one parent that is supportive and the other parent that isn't. And then you have to put on your referee shirt, right? In working with the family dynamics.
Yeah, even before we had meetings, before we even started our Pathfinder year or Adventure year, we made it mandatory for the parents to come to this meeting. And of course, in that meeting, what did I say? Point blank, what do you expect me to do with your kid? I want to know, what do you want our staff to accomplish with your son or daughter this year? Tell me what you want. Okay? And of course, Marion talked about commitment. Okay? That's what we're going to try and do this year. Now, your part. I know it's difficult to get here on time, whatever, but you know what? In order for them to be here, you got to bring them.
It's like if you want me and my staff to be committed,
Mm-hmm.
to be here,
Yeah.
to plan and have good things, then you need to make a
Right.
commitment that the child's gonna be here.
Yeah, and it's usually a much bigger picture, right? When we deal with the Pathfinders, sometimes we deal with the parents, right? So now you understand how Pathfinders, how Adventures is a ministry of our church. It's not just the kids, right? We're dealing with the parents, you know, because hopefully we're being role models for them, how to be a successful parent, that yes, we are human beings, we go through the same stress too, we'd like to tear them apart, we'd like to, whatever, keep their mouths shut, you know,
That would be a big blessing.
okay? So yeah, there's a big question and answer regarding what's your expectation, yours and ours. Okay, this is not just my problem and your, no. We gotta work here together.
So now I got
Yeah,
communication.
these are my goals. These are our goals for this year. This is what we want to accomplish. Okay, anyway, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, it's communication now.
Okay, communication.
Parents' expectations, commitment.
Let's see, involvement and their support.
Yeah.
Okay, the next group. Okay, questions, communications with parents. Now, in the group exercise that we did, who had the ones with communication? Was it this group that had anybody had the communication issue? Or the communication task that they had to do? No? Yeah, transportation, right?
Yeah.
Transportation and supervision, and you guys had the risk. Okay.
The contingency
Yeah,
planning.
contingency.
Yeah.
Let's do with communication with parents.
Okay.
What is it about communication with parents? Tell me what, just blurt it out there. Bullet points. Clarity. Okay, that's pretty general. What are you talking about?
Specifics, yeah.
Specific. Such as,
Meeting dates and times, Pathfinder events,
okay, what else?
expectations again.
Yeah, anything else? What else? What else with communication?
What about consent?
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Consents. Okay. Usually when we go out and do a camp trip, whenever we're taking the kids out from the church, when are we going? What time are we going? When are we coming back? What else? Who's going? How are we going? Are we going by bus? Are we going by plane? Are we going, and who's driving? Are we using personal vehicles?
Yes.
Yeah, are we using personal vehicles? What else? And what about, this is what we are going to do. This is what we plan to do. Okay? I'll give you an example. I had written to the teens. I told the parents, we're going to be taking out the teens. We're going to go out to the river. And our intent of going to the river, we are making this movie, okay, to be shown at the Teen Institute. Okay? We're going to be jet skiing, going to be water skiing, we're going to be tubing. I'm bringing my boat. Tom Hagden, who you all know, is bringing his boat. We're going to be staying at his vacation rental out there at Lake Havasu. Okay? All of that.
Nice.
Okay? Very nice. We had a we had a wonderful weekend. We made our movie. It was intense. Everybody knew what was going on. Okay? So for Pathfinder Sabbath, we decided to show the movie. Okay? And the movie was entitled, Whose Tomb Are You Riding? Okay, in the movie, we showed the kids jumping off probably a cliff, maybe 15, 20 feet high into the water and all that stuff. Afterwards, after Pathfinder Sabbath, both of the parents came up to me. Both of the parents were emergency nurses, they were trauma nurses, they were neurology, neuro-dependent nurses, okay, critical care nurses, and they were upset. And I said, why? We had no idea that my son was jumping off a cliff into the water. I had to take a deep breath. And I'm thinking, did I include that in my description about what we were doing? We had done that thing millions of times. I mean, it wasn't 50 feet. It was 20 feet, maybe, 15, 20 feet, jumping into the water, no harm, no done. But they had a different perspective, being emergency nurses, neuro nurses, and they said, you know what? A lot of things could have gone wrong. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely correct. You're right. I did not communicate that. Everything else I did. So put that in your back burner in terms of contingency or communicating, okay? Now, if you plan to go to Gillette, it's going to be even more important communicating with parents. When are we going? Who's going? What are we doing on the way to? What are we doing on the way back? Who's got allergies? Who's taking medication? Who's going to be riding with whom? Where are we going to eat? What activities are there going to be at Camporee? We only have 2 adults going and both of them are males. Yeah. That's what. Yep. Right. You're going to let your son or daughter go on this trip? Okay, so it's going to be even much more important in terms of communication. How we're going to communicate? I'm going to send you an email, or we're going to have cell phones. Are you going to have a list of the adults who are going? Are you going to have a list of their contact information? So even more important to communicate with parents. Well, not just parents, okay? Let's see what else we got. Okay, we talked about, prepare consent forms. We'll talk about high-risk activities. Okay, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how do you evaluate activities that we're doing. Okay, so that's one area. Consent forms, keep that in mind. Provide information sheets regarding activities, date, time, and place. Okay, but that's still quite general. That's still quite general. We're going to talk about a little bit more specifically about how do we keep ourselves covered, how do we keep ourselves safe. Okay? And a what to bring list. You guys thought about that? The one year we went to Oshkosh, for the years prior, all Oshkosh major camporees, the weather was hot, humid, sticky. So of course, every time they had Oshkosh, everybody brought shorts, t-shirts, tank tops. The one year that we went, who would have known? The one year that we went, it was freezing. Freezing from the beginning to the end of the camporee. Okay, can you imagine every shop in Oshkosh who had anything to do with warmth? Sleeping bags, sweaters, thrift stores, Goodwill, gone. All of their stuff was gone. Not only that, they contacted their home church and said, listen, it's freezing here. Can you send us sweaters, sleeping bags,
Blankets.
extra blankets? And they did. Of all the camporees that one time it was freezing. until the last day. Sun came out, it was beautiful. I was like, and it also rained too.
Mhm.
It also rained. So what else? What else do we have? Okay, medical treatment release. Now, in terms of going to Gillette, now it's Gillette this time. The medical releases that we got, we had probably 8 vehicles going. So we made copies of all the kids' medical release forms in case there was an emergency that you can take with you, that the adult will take with you.
With each vehicle.
Which each vehicle, and which all the passengers that was in that vehicle. Okay, contact information, health insurance information, allergies, if any. Where can we reach you during these dates? Which of you, parents, guardians, where are you going to be during the time that we're taking you kids? Okay, and that applies not just for Gillette, Camporee, but for any outing that you go to. Okay, keep that in mind.
Don,
Yes.
could you speak into the mic so that,
Oh, yes, yes.
thank you.
Okay, you want me to sing too? Okay. Obtain information from both parents. Now, anybody have any question regarding both parents or guardians, singular and plural? Okay, lo and behold, you don't want some parents show up and say, hey, I was not made aware. And sometimes the one parent who wants to be a little bit vindictive, well, I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to tell her. You know, or something happens and the parent at home says, I was not aware that you were going to do this. I was not aware. Of course, we have the parents take on that responsibility of informing the other. Now, if you're going to Gillette, you know, you're taking them across county lines. You know, you don't want an incident occurring where the parents are saying, you know, where's my son, where's my daughter, and you did what? You know? Okay, how to contact staff. Are you going to have walkie-talkies? Are you going to have, I mean, now it's great because everybody has phones, you know. Back then we communicated with CBs and FRS radios and things like that. You know, but now we have cell phones. We can do all kinds of things. We can send up flares. You know, there's a Subway here. Let's eat there. You know. Why Subway? Because not all of us are vegetarians. Or maybe we are vegetarians and that's what they have there. You know, we can't stop at Burger King and order a plant-based meal. Okay? Let's see what else we got here. Inform the Pathfinders do's and don'ts of the activities. Include consequences and be consistent. Whatever you give the Pathfinders, it should be consistent with what you give the parents. Okay? Now the consequences. You know, this is the interesting part. Every time we went out in the situation, you know, I was point blank. Don't bring guns. Don't bring knives. Don't bring your cell phones or anything that's electronic. You fight, I will take you home. Period. No questions asked. I will take both parties home. And you know what? It happened only once. I took them home because you were fighting. They didn't ask them any questions. I said, no, this is the rules. And of course, what was most embarrassing to them is that they had to explain to their parents at 3 o'clock in the morning, what did you do? You know, at the same time, we also told the parents, if we have to bring your son home or your daughter home, you be available. I expect that you will be available. The first couple years where we had the cell phones, I told them, don't bring your cell phones. And the reason for that is I want you to talk to each other. And you know what? When they talk to each other, everybody look forward to the campfire at night, because that's where they talk to each other. That's when they talked about each other, they talked at each other, they laughed, they cried, they sang. The campfire was a wonderful thing. They did not think about their cell phones. Or you bring your cell phone, I'm going to take it away from you. But if you have a medical emergency that your parents had, they can contact us. You let us know. Okay, so sometimes only has to happen one or twice, and then they get the idea. Yes?
So what happens when a parent's like, but I want my child to have their phone? Or do you go over that with them beforehand as well?
For what purpose, you know?
Yeah.
I asked for what purpose. Marion, did you hear that?
Yeah, generally, what I would tell the parent is one of the staff members will retain the phone. And if there is, because sometimes there are family situations going on that they need communication. And so then we just tell the parent, when you need that contact with your, child, yeah, then you can call the phone and the staff member will facilitate that communication with them.
We give them parameters for which you can contact, you know. And we also tell them, there's a bigger picture. We want you to talk to each other. We really do want you to talk to each other. You've seen those pictures and slides where there's a group of kids on a picnic table, and they're in close proximity. And the slide says, yeah, they're talking to each other on their phone. Nobody's saying anything, but they are saying something through their phone. They're talking to each other. It's like, oh, so this is what we are heading towards. Oh, yeah, this is what we're heading towards. Let's get together and talk on our phones. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Provide patterns with the same information. We talked about that.
The church board.
Communicate with the board, church board, and obtain approval. Now, this is where the planning comes in. I gave my church board the plan for the whole year. Okay, I gave them the plan for the whole year. So whenever I planned, or whether my staff and I planned, we planned for the whole year. We gave them the whole year. So it takes some diligence in terms of planning, okay, and giving it to the board. And why do we do that? Anybody know why?
So that, well, it's just, you want the church behind you and know what you're doing, but also, for insurance reasons, the board has
There you go.
to be in the minutes.
There you go.
Okay, yeah,
That's right.
working, I worked in risk management for many years as, the counsel, one of the attorneys there. And so I was responsible for managing the claims that came in for San Bernardino, Riverside, San Diego County. And when a claim would come in, one of the first questions I had to answer, was this a church-sponsored activity? Okay, because, and how can you show that? Is it on the calendar? Did it go to the church board? Okay, or was this just a weekend activity that a group of people that go to the same church decided to get together?
Tell them what happened on the Washington.
Up in Washington, one Sabbath afternoon, there was a group of, staff and Pathfinders. After they said, oh, we're going to go, hiking, And so, of course, the kids told the parents, yeah, we're going to go, with the Pathfinder group here. We're going to go on a hike. So they went hiking, and there was a fast-running creek. One of the kids, went down to, go in the water because it was hot, to cool off. But the current, there was a very strong current, and the kid got sucked down. One of the staff members jumped in to get the child, got sucked in, So both that child died and the staff member died. Okay, 2 people died. Okay, and then of course, then they contacted risk management, right? We got the claim, and the question was this a church-sponsored activity? It wasn't. And then of course, the whole issue was, well, you mean risk management's not going to pay for it? But we're a Christian church. And and we had to say, when we have responsibility we have a fiduciary responsibility to manage the resources of the church. And the activities that people are involved in is balanced when each conference is paying their premiums each year. It's based on, okay, what was your losses over the last 5 years? So there are, there's, mechanisms in place to evaluate those. Yes, it was a horrible situation. And so what risk management did in that particular situation was they, as a compassion, they covered expenses, funeral expenses for the family. But they told them that it was not a loss. If they wanted to sue, they wouldn't really have any legal basis. And so there was a compassionate assistance there, but it was devastating for the church. Devastating for the church.
2 families.
Oh, for everybody in the church. I mean, those situations are horrible. And it was wasn't well planned. It was a spontaneous activity, and we know how that happens. And that's something that you have to think about if you're going to go to Gillette. Okay, we're going to drive out there, and you know what, guys? We're really close to Zion National Park. Let's stop there. Okay? Let's stop at Zion. You right?
It's so true.
And so you change your plans as you're going along.
Yeah. Or grandmother is just right here. It's just an hour off of our trip. Can I just go and visit? Mm-hmm. Last night I was asking Marion, because I was feeling so bad. I said, Marion, is there ever a time when risk management says, no, this is not covered? Do they? And Marion said, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of times when they say, no, it is not. And you just feel bad, like she said, You had 2 families destroyed. You had the church who was devastated. And then to think of all the financial problems, the loss, the grief, it's a terrible feeling, Anyway, let's move on here real quick. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Transportation safety. Now, your group had transportation. So just spiel out bullet points. What was it? I mean, the scenario is the same for all of us, okay? It's just that responsibilities of each group, we have 2 groups here, that was different. And theirs happened to be, what about transportation? Given the information that we have. Transportation, supervision, what did you have?
So I think when we first read it, we were under the assumption that all the medical stuff had been sort of cleared.
Okay, you thought about it. In other words, you've thought about it.
Because it says that it's already been approved, and we're in charge of transportation, specifically and supervision. So those things would fall out of our jurisdiction, but
Right.
in terms of transportation,
Give
like
him the
you had
microphone.
said, is making sure that we have the medical consent forms in each vehicle.
Give him the microphone.
We have the medical consent forms in each Pathfinders forms or allergies or known whatever. Their paperwork in each van or in each car, so that we if there's an immediate stop off or something happens even on the way. Checking insurance, typically in most Adventist scenarios that I know, in order to drive youth, you need a certain amount of coverage.
Okay.
I've worked as an assistant dean. You needed to have at least 250, coverage. And so it's super important there. We had also talked about, dividing up the youth according to the chaperones in a way that is, appropriate. So for example, we want to make sure that females are typically going with the female chaperone, unless that there's enough of them and other, youth that are male that it's comfortable. It's not any one-on-one type situation. It's making sure that everyone's divided up well. When we get there, obviously, and of course, safe driving practices, seat belts, hey, no standing up, no distracted driving, none of that, and that's also reminding the chaperones, hey, look, you may drive a certain way, but now there are other lives in your cars. You need to be more aware of what's going on. And so that might even be checking, hey, what's your driving record look like? Worst case scenario, if this person has gotten in a few wrecks, you might want to ask, well, how many of those were your fault, right? Or even just, is your registration up to date? All these different things, because if you're getting pulled over, you're putting the whole trip on hold, and then the cop might even say, well, you can't drive all these kids, and then you're stuck there, right? Mm-hmm. It's terrible. You don't want to be that person. So that was in terms of transportation. Now, part of that also carries over to the supervision, but when we got to, when you get to the campsite, that's where things become a bit more important with supervision, because the kids are no longer confined to a vehicle, where it's very easy to monitor more or less what they're doing. So we said it'd be good to establish, hey, these are the parameters you guys can go. These are the landmarks that you are looking for. This is what we are considering the bathroom. This is where we get our potable water. So don't go to the bathroom over near the potable water. You go to the bathroom. Because, you have to tell these kids sometimes they don't always think.
What about?
You need a microphone.
What about, the rest of the group were leaving at 3 o'clock. School gets out at 2:30. Krista is not able to leave with the rest of the group, but she is able to be, she can leave at 6 o'clock with the ones who couldn't leave at 3.
Well, I think in cases like that, it depends. You also have to sort of check in with everyone and go, when is it an okay time that all the staff can leave? Mm-hmm. Okay, double checking, hey, this is when we're planning on leaving. Does this work for everyone with their given responsibilities? One might say, well, I have work until 5, so I cannot. Mm-hmm. So anybody who I'm taking would need to arrive at this time so that I can take them. And that's where it gets a little bit more complex, or you have to start. But overall, the criteria should still be met of, okay, then the people who are going with you, do you have their medical forms? Do you have this? And then if they're going alone, it's okay. Well, what happens if, planning for contingencies, what happens if you get a flat? Do you have everything ready so that you can take those kids on your own over there and meet us there? So yes, going back to, staff supervision, definitely creating a system of, hey, guys, since we're doing wilderness camping, make sure you're always with a buddy. It's a lot harder to get in touch with you guys, so you need to make sure you're doing the buddy system. It would then be divided based on how many kids you have of each. So it says that there's one female supervisor, but there are 2 female guides. Now the guides would then be assigned to help her keep track of all the females, because she's the only female supervisor. So she's gonna need the teenagers' help. Whereas there's 3 males supervisors or chaperones and 1 male guide. And so the 3 male chaperones can then divide it up into 4 or 5 kids that you're in charge of per chaperone. Because there's about, there's 13 males, and then there are 10 females.
Okay, let me stop you right there. Let me stop you. I think you're heading in the right direction. You're asking all the right questions. You're
Microphone?
thinking ahead. Okay, you're asking all the right questions, and you're thinking ahead, which is good. This is good. I'm going to stop you right there only because let's see how much time. What else we got? Anything you want to add? No.
There are a couple of things that I just want to touch on. You talked about checking the driver's record, okay? Most people, if you say to them, what's your driving record? They're going to say, oh, no problem, right? Or they may, you don't have to worry about it. All you have to ask your drivers to do, even if they've already gone on Sterling, they've already filled out all their paperwork, if they're now driving, they can go back onto Sterling, and now they can click the box that they're going to be driving. Sterling will do the driving check for you. You don't have to worry about that. Okay?
Are all of you aware of Sterling volunteers?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're not, then good.
Okay. So that's a resource.
Okay, we're going to move forward. Okay, we're going to move forward here. Transportation safety. We're going to talk about at least the basic elements of transportation safety. So when you're thinking about going and taking the kids off campus, especially when you're driving to Gillette. Okay, Marion?
Okay. So, we talked, a little bit, some of this was already covered, okay?
Yep, good.
Looking at, the driving records, okay? What about the vehicles? Okay, how many of you actually look at the maintenance and repair of, is this vehicle in good shape? Are the tires good? Oftentimes we're just thinking, oh, you'll drive, oh, good, okay? Can anyone tell me what the 2-adult rule is?
Just have 2 adults in a vehicle, right?
Right, that's the recommendation, okay, from Adventist Risk Management. And the reason for that is that protects the driver from allegations of inappropriate behavior, but it also, the driver can focus on the driving, and the other adult that is there in the car can be supervising the kids.
Especially with that 15-passenger van, trust
wait,
me.
We'll get to
We'll
that.
get-
We
You
will
have
get to
somebody in there with them.
Mm-hmm.
that. Let me tell you, as
Not just the
kids,
driver.
especially if you're planning on driving or anything that's distance, okay? I'm driving. This has happened to me, and my daughter is in the back, okay? And what does she do? She gets like a pole with a string with a feather. And she's over in the back seat, and what she does? She's trying to tickle my ear. Kids will
It's your own kids, too.
Yeah.
And it's your own kid. Kids are going to do what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, and of course they don't understand the ramifications of that sometimes. Okay, so go ahead, man.
You have to have seat belts, right, for everybody that's in the car, and they have to be working seat belts. And so you want to make sure that you have the appropriate, not just the numbers, but what about the weight? What is the weight that vehicle can take? And are you over that weight with all of your equipment or, and the people that are in the vehicle? So, those things also need to be considered. Okay.
I'm going to show you
some
this.
slides.
You tell me what your first thoughts come to mind. Okay. What do you think? I know the picture's kind of scrunchy. What do you guys gonna think?
In general.
Yeah, in general.
I think that
This conference
could
is
be a
like
fun
it.
outing, but I also think that it's
Going there, you mean, or the
Yeah.
vehicle?
The vehicle.
The vehicle.
Yeah, the vehicle.
I don't know if it's parked there.
Okay, all right. Okay, let me show you the next picture here.
Okay.
Yeah, they're saying no 15 passengers.
That is a 15-passenger van, okay? And The reason for no 15-passenger vans is because the base of the vehicle has been extended, but there's no additional wheelbase support. So when the vehicle will flip very easily. And so that is why 15-passenger vans, they are not covered, okay, under risk management. Okay, they're not covered for that reason. Now, you can get 15-passenger buses. Okay, if you have a group, that's, the short bus, they're fine. They're covered.
But
You have to have a Class B license to drive them.
now, if you have a 15-passenger license, you have the 15-passenger van or buses, what's the likelihood that you're going to put baggage, okay? Baggage, things in it, equipment, resources, okay? By doing that, what happens? You have now increased the weight. You have gone over the GVWR, the ground vehicle weight ratio. Okay?
And
So-
it's not just, a lot of clubs would say, oh, well, I'll just take the back row of seats out. Okay? So now it's a 12-passenger van. No, it isn't. It's still an extended 15-passenger van. The reason it's unsafe is because of the design of the vehicle, not the number of
Yeah.
seats.
So when you think in terms of a 10-passenger van or a 12-passenger van, any weight beyond the 12-passenger, you add another person, you add their equipment, or you add persons, it increases the risk that if you got into an accident, whether it's your fault or not, or if you did a sudden maneuver and now you've lost control. So it increases the center, it changes the center of gravity of that thing. So that thing will flip multiple times.
And the other area that I want to touch on real quick, okay, it's called non-owned vehicle policies, which means if your volunteers are driving their own vehicles, their vehicle insurance is primary, and the risk management insurance is secondary. And a lot of people don't realize that. And so what you have to keep in mind, if you're going on a long trip, you can purchase travel insurance. And so if you purchase the travel insurance, and it's very minimal, when they went to Oshkosh last year, well, not last year, in 2019, it cost $495 for each person, plus a $20 application fee. I mean, that's pennies for what you're getting, okay? And it covered the vehicle. Flat tires, anything, trailer, it covers everything. And it puts Adventist Risk Management as the primary insurance. And so for your drivers, that's, I mean, if I was driving my vehicle, I would get the travel insurance for that alone.
Now, the travel insurance from Adventist Risk Management will become available in August. This August for Gillette.
And they'll have their rate,
No,
because
they'll
I
have
don't know
the
what
rate.
their rate will be this time.
So don't go, but be sure to get that. It's a nominal fee. Get covered, I had spoken to somebody recently who said, no, I'm just taking the equipment from this church and that's it. I'm just pulling it over. And I'm thinking, in the past, when we were at Oshkosh, and of course, when they heard of Pathfinder clubs coming with their trailers that had an accident, they lost everything in their trailer. Everything. They lost everything. Of course, as campers, as Pathfinders, they were covered. We absorbed them into the club's activities, the clothing, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? And they did not have short-term travel insurance. And you're talking thousands of dollars. You know, the kids' clothing, all of the food, all of the stuff they use to cook food,
Yeah.
all the
Camping gear.
equipment, the trailer, the tie, all of that was destroyed. But to have that covered in the end, I think, oh, at least that was covered.
Okay, show the
At
next
least that was
slide,
covered.
Don.
So you were saying about non-owned vehicles?
Yeah, in other words, risk management, the policy for risk management, a non-owned vehicle is, if I'm driving my own vehicle, it's not owned by the church.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
Not church-owned.
so it's classified as a non-owned vehicle versus you could have a church vehicle, you could have, the church can rent the vehicle, okay, because then it's a church vehicle.
I wanted to, okay, we talked about the Class B license, okay, and the safety restraints, etc. Open vehicles shall not be used to transport passengers.
Yeah.
Okay? The next picture I want to show you is the Pathfinder group, teen group. We did a mission trip to Navajo country. Okay? And of course, obey the traffic laws. What do we have there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, it was fun. But you know, I was very fortunate that we didn't have any.
So where are you at?
We're in Navajo country.
Monument
Ojeda,
Valley.
Monument Valley. You know. Yeah, one example, huh? One example. But like all examples, we learn from them. And of course, a good friend of mine was the risk manager. And he shows his picture all the time. And I'm thinking, oh.
Okay. You have a fact pattern.
Used to ride my dad's truck, and not that many, but all the time, never thought anything of it.
Mhm.
You know, at one time when I was a kid.
Yeah, and of course, what did the driver say? The driver of this said, oh, we go real slow. We go real slow. Okay. But here again, too, they had different laws on Navajo lands. This is the way they traveled. All the time. And it was perfectly legal for them to have a teenager or younger than teenager drive. Only on Navajo lands. Because, yeah, it was very common that you have a 12-year-old go to the neighbor, pick up their kids, and pick up the other kids and take them to school.
Yep.
Very common. And acceptable under their laws. So if they can do it, why can't we? Right? Okay, 2 Pathfinder teens attended a program. The 17-year-old was giving the 16-year-old a ride home afterwards. Driver begins to drive away. As the rider approaches the vehicle, the rider runs after the moving car and jumps onto the back of the trunk. He falls and sustains a head injury. How many times does that happen? It does, right? It does. And what do parents do? Oh, my son always does that. My 17-year-old always brings home the 15-year-old. But what sometimes happens, more often than not, is can so-and-so, who is not a member of the family, can you bring him home too? It's on the way. It's convenient. Right? Well, what happened to this boy? Ended up in the hospital. He is ventilated. He has a brain injury. The extent of his recovery is unknown.
And then, of course, the parents say, well, we didn't consent for the 17-year-old to give the 16-year-old a ride home. And think about it. When I'm releasing Pathfinders, okay, I'm careful with my younger ones, right? Making sure that it's an appropriate person.
Same way.
But, I don't scrutinize, because I can't, because the teens are all hanging out together and, walking off, and you assume that they're going with who they should be going with.
Right. So you might want to ask parents, do you do this? Do you have your 18-year-old? Do you have your 17-year-old come and pick up the younger siblings and other people?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to know that's going on, So, was this supervised? No, not really. We didn't have a staff person outside watching all the time. What had happened is what kids do. Tries to drive off, the younger one tries to run and catch him, I'm thinking, oh, it's all fun and games, and look what happens.
I guess in this case, the parents, quote unquote, said they did not consent, but what if they're the ones who, hey, since you're going home, can you just bring them? Is that not consent?
That
Even
is.
if it's like in a text message? Okay, so then,
But the communication in this particular case
uh-huh.
was between the teenagers.
Okay.
The 17-year-old said to the 16-year-old, oh, I'll give you a ride. The 16-year-old just contacts and says, oh, I have a ride. You don't need to come.
When we have younger children, no, we tell the parents, no, you go park and you come in.
Yep.
Okay, not, oh, go out there, your mom said, go ahead. No, come in, sign them out. We want to make sure that you go home with who you're supposed to go to. Do you know this person? Oh, it's Uncle Jack. Okay. You know Uncle Jack? He's a good guy. We've seen him so often. Is it okay? Your mom said okay? Your dad says okay? Yeah.
Keep moving.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, Marion.
Okay, this, is, there's a transportation checklist. And of course, on here, it's, got checks all on. But if you actually got the form, there are little boxes where those little check marks are. This form is available at adventistrisk.org, okay? There's lots of checklists that are available there. It's a transportation checklist that you can use for all of your, when you're planning your transportation. Things to think about. adventistrisk.org.
You have that on I think the second to the last page.
Yeah, all the links are there.
Use this checklist and provide it to the board. It's interesting. One of the other reasons we do that when we present it to the board, you got so many people on the board. You got these people. Hopefully, they're critical thinkers. So they begin to ask the question. But when you provide them this list and you say, "Listen, here's what we did. This is what the ARM has provided. Here's all the documentation necessary. Anybody have any questions, et cetera, et cetera." You know what? The board gives you that coverage, that approval, that vote. It goes into the minutes. Okay.
Okay, so now we're going to kind of think about, okay, how do we evaluate activities? How do we know what kind of risk these activities are? And so the first thing that you look at with your activities is, is this a low risk activity, a medium risk activity, or a high risk activity? And when you're trying to decide how do we know what the risk is, the most important thing to think about is how much control do I have over this activity, okay? So activities like marching and drilling, you have quite a bit of a control, right? So that's a pretty low risk, okay? An activity like you're playing basketball, well, you don't have quite so much control because there are things that can happen that you can't control, so that's a medium risk. But then when you look at activities like rock climbing and tubing, now you're in a much higher risk. Okay, so you kind of categorize. How do you categorize the risk?
Here, Marion, let me give them an example. Okay, folks. Okay. You got low, medium, and high risk. Okay? Fairly simple, okay? Okay. High risk, low risk? Why is it high risk? Huh? Okay, so if she tripped and fell or she slipped, guess what she's falling into?
There's
Look
water.
at those sharp.
Yep.
More trees or even a river underneath.
Yep. I know, you cringe when you see this, huh? You know what? The Lord is good.
Is she wearing sandals or like?
I think some shoes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So the one thing I can say that the Lord is good. So, no no problems here. Okay,
Poncho.
a poncho.
Yeah, because it was raining.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine if she slipped.
Yep.
Okay. Basic rescue. Pretty low. Okay. You have an adult there who's supervising, showing an example of the kids of how to do a 2-man. Okay, lift rescue. Okay. So, what about this?
That's
High
a high
risk.
risk, right?
For others, okay? And how about this?
Well, I mean, it's high risk, but he's an adult, so. Is he my concern?
Yeah.
Kind of concern.
You should have known better. Yeah.
That's on him.
He has a life jacket on. He's not that far off it, yeah. Have you guys ever done this?
Tubing, yeah.
Can be terrifying. Yes.
And depending on whether you know how to swim.
I know. Pictures do wonderful things, don't they?
Yep.
Okay, here's one. Have you heard of the game Chubby Bunny?
What do you think?
What do you think?
That could be high risk.
Why?
In their esophagus,
Okay.
and they can go into faint
Yep.
and coma or something like that.
Oh,
I wanna say it feels high risk, but
you know, we did this.
We used to-
I did this as a. Now that I think about it, as a participant at PSR, Pine Springs Ranch. But now as I think about it, this is dangerous. Well, let me tell you.
Here, give
Okay, let me tell you. Okay, Fish versus Board of Education of this place. 12-year-old girl playing Chubby Bunny in the 6th grade classroom. Fish choked on the marshmallows, died of asphyxiation. Lawsuit brought for negligent supervision. Of course, the audience watching them eat as many marshmallows that you could stuff in your mouth. And of course, the more you can stuff in your mouth, you won. But
So
what,
is it about how much they stick in their mouth or how much they eat in a certain amount of time?
well,
Well,
how
no,
much
they
you
have
can
to-
stick in your mouth?
They have to cram it in their
How much
mouth.
you can cram in your mouth? Okay.
And to me, that's what's going to get it out of there.
You
Well, you don't
choke.
win if you do that.
I mean, somebody's choking,
Yeah.
Yeah, but yep,
Yeah.
right. Case litigated to trial and then settled during trial. Settlement, $2 million. $2 million. Of course, there was a loss of life.
Not only that, though, the marshmallows melted, and
Yep.
it's like
Oh, that's what happened. Yep.
Well, it blocks all of the airways, and it doesn't take much, because when it's all congealed together and you can't breathe. You cannot breathe. So, yes. Was it funny? Yes, it was funny, but now that I think about it, oh, no, that's dangerous. That is a very dangerous game. Very dangerous.
that's like with
Okay?
when they're doing the cinnamon.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, gotta take care of that. Okay, Marion, additional risk factors?
Okay, yeah, so additional risk factors that you have to think about. You know, how much staff do you have? What are the qualifications of the staff? What is the experience of the Pathfinders in the activity that you're doing? What is the experience of the staff in the activity that you're doing? Let's see what other things are here.
Ratios for
Okay. Ratios. Okay, so we talked about our different levels. These are the, once you've evaluated, is this a low risk, a medium risk, or a high risk? Adventist Risk Management has these, ratios. And these ratios are pretty standard that come from the Department of Education. That's where they come from. So that when you have, and this is based on Pathfinder age group, not adventures, okay? Pathfinder age group. So if it is, a high risk, it's a 1-to-4 ratio. A medium risk is a 1-to-12 ratio. And a low risk is a 1-to-25 ratio. So it just kind of gives you a guideline as to, okay, do I have enough staff?
Yes. Here's another one. During a Pathfinder meeting, Pathfinders are running and playing in the church foyer. While running, Pathfinders try to open the glass door, misses the handle, and punches the hand through the glass door. Severe and permanent injury to the hand. The claim for negligent supervision. Okay? Claim goes to trial with the verdict for the plaintiff, and the verdict reduced by the plaintiff's own negligence. And here's the final verdict, $615,000. And of course, what was the question? Who's watching the kids? So, I think of all the times we had our kids at the fellowship hall. And they're, folks, stay safe. We'll see you next week. Go home, and the kids are running around.
Okay.
So,
So then let's talk a little bit about supervision. And when you're looking at supervision, you can't just look at your numbers. How many times have you seen a Pathfinder activity going on, and all the kids are over here playing, and all the adults are sitting over here chatting?
Yes.
Okay? Okay, that's not supervision. But it happens frequently.
oh yeah.
And so you have to remind the staff that when there's activities going on, they are responsible for supervising. And they can't be supervising if they're, having a chit-chat with.
And Pathfinders and teens will create their own idea of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, you have to be diligent in terms of watching and making sure that they are safe, because things happen, And we'll get more to when things happen. How do I plan for that?
And so you also have to look at, okay, what's the qualifications? Is the activity that I'm doing a specialized activity that I need a qualified person for? Sometimes it's better to bring an expert in, okay, if you want to do a particular activity, if you don't have someone in your group that is really qualified. Okay.
Yeah, let me show you this. This is a place, again, in Navajo country. We took our teens out to do some mission work, but as part of the fun, there's a place called Fat Man Squeeze. Okay, what you don't see is at the very bottom how two huge boulders that go down to the ground. Okay, now here you have nearly 2 adults on one teen. The one adult is very close. We call her Carolyn, who's instructing her how to. This is a high-risk activity, okay? So it's a one-on-one but at the same time, the person who has the qualifications, the expertise, he's watching, he's behind there. Okay, so he's watching there. So we took the teams one at a time. This is what you do. And this is how you can do it safely. Because if you don't, you'll go down to the bottom and you get stuck. And we'll leave you to the coyotes and wolves, and we'll pick you up tomorrow morning. Another thing, Oshkosh, you know who this guy is? Mark West. He's an Olympic champion.
Well,
Okay.
he's not alive anymore.
No, he's not, but he did this for years. He and his family taught archery. And for many years at Oshkosh, they had archery. So here he is on one-on-one doing archery, supervising. Very good man. Okay? High-risk activity? Yeah? Joshua Tree? Okay, you see only one person? Let me give you an example. 7 14 to 15-year-olds and 3 adults were on a church-sponsored weekend at a church-owned camp. Okay? And the church board knew about it. They knew about it. Okay? Leader decides the kids should learn to mountain or rappel down the face of a cliff. This was not included as one of the weekend activities on the consent or information provided. Leader had 30 years of rock climbing experience, but no certification. Suspended by ropes and harness, but no helmets. They made their way down an 80-foot rock face at the bottom. Teens were told to climb up using a trail. 2 of the boys waiting at the top decided to climb back down the trail. No adult saw them go down. No adult saw them go down. Okay? But the other kids heard them say they were going back down. Halfway down, they stopped at the ledge where one of the boys decided to climb back on the face of the cliff. No one instructed the teams not to climb up the face of the cliff. While reaching the top of the cliff, the boy lost his grip. He fell 80 feet to the bottom, suffering extensive brain injuries. One adult at the top was about 1 foot from where he fell, but did not see him. Case settled, demand for $10 million. The defense cost was $105,000. The settlement was for $4 million, 4.5, okay? And the cost to the family was priceless. It happens. It happens. Okay. Equipment, Marion, and resources.
Okay. So the other thing we've talked about, looking at your supervision and your activities, then you have to think about your equipment. And so when you're looking at your equipment, you have to think about, okay, what is the condition of the equipment? When's the last time I used it? You don't wait till you get out to your camporee to find out that you have some of your tent poles missing or broken. If you're going to go camping, you should be setting up your tents before you go and making sure that there aren't holes in them, there's not mold on them, they're adequate. Any of the equipment that you're going to be using, do you have extra parts? So if I'm going camping, what happens? You got to have extra fuel for your lanterns, and you've got to have extra of those little filaments, because if it breaks, you don't have anything.
You're going to be in the dark.
You're going to be in the dark. If you're using flashlights, you better have extra batteries. It's just, thinking and planning for all of your equipment, making sure that it is, good, set it up ahead of time, check it out.
Okay, here's a picture. This is at the camporee. They're climbing a rock wall, portable rock wall. Okay. Here you have an instructor who's harnessed. Here you have a participant that's harnessed and giving instructions. High risk activity, but what you don't see is all the other adults underneath supervising. Okay.
But
Here's
they-
another one. Let's see if you catch this one. I'm not saying anything is wrong. See if you catch it though.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think? Spill it out.
They're not in seats. They're sitting on the kayak itself, which, there's no way if it tips it like.
Yeah, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Supposed to be on it.
Okay.
Usually
Two.
two.
Yeah, this is a two-man kayak they're sitting on.
And one's not wearing a life jacket.
That's right.
And like I said, God is good. God is so good. You know why? Because it was my intent to say, this kayak here, this thing is safe, okay? Let me tell you. I was trying to tell them, this kayak is 20 foot long. It's a two-people kayak. It is indestructible, okay? Unsinkable. And we're going to go prove that. And the teens did prove that. Take a look. You only see 5. I wish I had taken a far shot. You'll see 15 of them on this thing. It's an indestructible. But here again, the boss. One of the bosses at the church, who's a risk manager, uses this picture, and he said, "What do you think? What activity?" And and here again, the teens are gonna do what they're gonna do. God is good. Yeah, of course, nothing happened on this trip, because we were watching, but still yet. No, we have another kayak just like this, but it's in yellow, but it's indestructible. You could have 30 people, 15 on each and 15 on each, and you can't sink this thing. It just stays afloat. Okay, what do you think? Okay.
I would say it's still pretty high risk.
Okay.
Even if those animals have instructors,
Yeah.
you never know what's going to spook.
Yeah. Yeah. They have at least helmets. They have helmets. The next picture I'm going to show to you, not so much. Oh, wait a minute. Where is that? Oh, you know what? I don't have it here.
Did you miss a picture?
Yeah, there was a picture of a boy
Riding a cow.
who was riding a cow. And the look on his face was just priceless. He was terrified. He was scared to death. Okay, so activity planning. Go ahead, Marion.
Oh, here, I thought you were doing this. Go through.
Pre-trip planning?
Yeah. I can go through. Okay, so for your activity planning, again, there's a pre-trip planning form on the list of things that you can get the resources from Adventist Risk Management. And so it goes through each of the things that you should be considering. And of course, a lot of it is, what we've, already talked about with your pre-trip. But you also want to make sure that when you're doing your pre-trip and you're planning, then you also have to think about what are the unexpected things that could happen, what are the emergencies that could happen, and what are the contingencies that you have to consider with your planning.
We'll talk more about contingencies here. Okay.
Okay, so you
Okay,
have
that
slides.
picture here.
Mhm.
High risk, low risk, medium risk. What do you think? High risk. Medium. This is a skidoo pulling inner tube with 2 people on it on the snow.
Yeah.
Very high risk. Can you control the inner tube?
No, not totally.
Not totally. Yeah, it makes it
But
high.
you can't go sledding down a hill then, it's high risk, because you're not always going to control your sled.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
I know. Like I said, God is good.
Well, and the longer your rope is, the more they're going to swing. You know, so you have to, so that makes it, you have less control the longer that your rope is on those.
Okay, high risk, medium risk, high risk. Yeah, he's standing on the ladder. And something else.
See, and what happened here, he had the wrong kind of ladder for what he was doing, right? He should have had a A-frame ladder, you know, or if he was going to use that, he should have had, you know, someone holding that ladder.
Okay, Marion, time allotment.
Okay, time. One of the other, you know, when you're looking at how risky an activity is how much time have you allotted for the activity? And is it a reasonable amount of time for you? Show the slide where they had the,
I'm going to show you something.
here.
I'm going to show you something here, and we've done this multiple times. Okay, what is this? Hayride.
Okay, what happened in this particular case, it was, you know, a hayride activity, and the gentleman riding the tractor, he was giving them a ride around his property. And what happened was they went on the second round, because there were more kids that wanted to go again, and he saw that it was getting dark, you know, getting close to dark, so he was running out of time. Well, there was a shortcut, there was a little road that he could take that would make it quicker, and it was just a very short distance on this road that he was driving. So he pulled onto the road, and a car coming down, didn't see them because there were no lights, ran into the back of the hayride. And it was, he wasn't planning on taking that particular route because he wasn't planning on taking the tractor on the road, but he did so because he was running out of time. And so that's why it's important to think about, okay, if you're running out of time and you're rushing, you're increasing your risk, and you can create a much more dangerous situation.
So next slide, Marion, the risks.
Okay, so
Yeah, so did anybody think of the possibility of time, the sun going down early? And rather than say, no, let's quit, you know, because I don't have lights on my trailer, you know, and why don't we just everybody get off?
yeah, so once you've identified your risks and you think you have everything under control, then you have to start thinking about your unexpected, and what can you do? What is your contingency planning? Okay, so the group that was doing the contingency, what did you guys come up with?
What did you guys come up with in your contingency planning? Let's see if you got it. Let's see how in your thinking.
well, I didn't know where you wanted to start, so we said
Anywhere,
we needed insurance info and driver info and all of, maybe even copies of license for each vehicle that was traveling. And that copies should be put with each driver according to who's riding.
Okay.
Just kind of, and of course permission slips and health information. Of course we need we put water and Gatorade because it's going to be hot. I'm thinking if it's the desert. In case of dehydration.
One of the problems that we had while going to Oshkosh, yeah, we thought it was a great idea to stop. You know, yeah, go get something to drink, folks. Yeah, it's going to be a long ride. But what we soon found out is the more you drank,
So we had to stop.
change our policy, change our plans immediately. because not everybody's bladder works every 3 hours or every 2 hours. So we have to think about that. What if? You know, God is good.
Yeah, contingency planning, you always start with, what's the worst thing that could happen? You know?
Always ask. What
Always ask, and how would you deal with that situation?
And as I repeat again, giving it to the board. So the board members can take a look at it, and somebody will come up with, hey, have you guys thought about this? Oh, no, we didn't. Thank
Well,
you very much.
yeah, because sometimes your board members are going to be a little more objective in looking at your activities that you're planning. And so that's why that helps. You also have to consider, okay, my Pathfinders, what is the predisposition of the group of kids that I'm with? Are they mischievous? You know, do they escalate each other, dare one another? You know, what's going to happen? Do I need to separate some so, you know, or have more supervision if these particular groups are together? Because, you know, the kids want to spend time with their friends, right? And so you have to, you know, consider all of those things. What about teens that are dating? Ooh. Okay, that creates all kinds of issues, right? You know,
She needs to listen about teens who are dating.
You know, in your club. How are you going to deal with those?
Okay. Yeah,
so-
if you're not a teen, you're going to be responsible for the teens that you're going to be monitoring. So listen up. Yeah.
Okay, show the next slide.
Well,
there.
here again, we had one of those situations where teens who were dating were riding in the vehicle. The problem that arose was another teen who was sitting in the vehicle who felt uncomfortable with what they were doing. So think about that in terms of how do I deal with that? And you're driving to Gillette. What do I do with boyfriends, girlfriends who are riding together? It became very contentious with those two and their parents.
Yeah,
So-
because even the parents, when we talk with the parents, they were fine with the two that were together because they thought they were both good kids. And, you know, they weren't doing, you know, they weren't inappropriate, but they were physically touching each other and holding hands. But the other kids in the vehicle were uncomfortable. And so we really had to say to the parents, we understand that you don't have a problem with it, but there are other parents that do. And so therefore, if you want them to go out on a date and you're going to supervise them, that's up to you. But when they're in the Pathfinder Club, we have to respect what the expectations of all of our parents are.
We almost sent them home.
Yeah.
We almost sent them home. At least her father said, no, you comply. You know, and basically what we told the teens was that prove to us that you can be trusted. You know, and the reason for that is, you know, there's somebody else in the car that's making, you know, that's feeling uncomfortable. Okay. Think about it. But now they continue to be defiant, and it's like, okay, we have to involve your parents. And of course, part of that communication with parents is that you be prepared for us sending your child home, or you come and get them at your own financial cost. You know, but the long run, it became very, you know, very contentious, just an ugly situation. So, but it is what it is. Okay, some more pictures. Okay, what do you see in this thing? We talk about teens being mischievous or mischief, or what is that in the back? Well, it's kind of blurry, but what do you see in the back? It's a life jacket. Yeah, life jacket on the back of the jet ski. That's going to really help. It's going to save the jet ski. Yeah, and you know what? Kids will do this. Kids will do this. And sometimes you say, oh, by the time you realize it, it may be gone and done. So you almost have to think ahead. You know, always have to remind the kids. And they do. I think whenever we went to the river, I said, no, nobody rides anything without a life jacket. And it never comes off until you come back on shore. It never comes off. And they did. And then, of course, the kids, the teens that are with you, the kids that are with, they remind each other, oh, no, you can't. No, put on your life jacket. Put it on. No, you're not going to ride with me. Put it on. Here's the next one. Okay? Yep. You know? Nothing mischievous, but just the way they handle resources. Sometimes safe and unsafe manners. You know, so this might be some instructions, some supervision to say, oh, that probably is not a good idea holding on to that knife like that, you know, especially if you're chopping or you're poking or, yeah, you could easily slip, and you know what? That's a nice laceration that has to get sewn up. Yeah. And we always tell the kids, if you get an injury where it needs to be sewn, we're not taking you to the emergency department. We're just gonna have Uncle Tom here, who's a dentist, sew you up. And of course, the kids are, really? Oh, yeah, he's a doctor. Don't worry about it. We got everything. Yeah, and one of the benefits that we had in our club, we had multiple levels of medical personnel, which was very beneficial. If we needed to do surgery, we could have.
Yeah, right.
And we did. No, I'm just kidding. We didn't do. You know, here's a teen being mischievous. You know.
And and they're only joking, right?
And they're joking.
But the next thing you know, they slip, or the person moves.
Yeah. And here again, this kid, I was asking some of my Pathfinder teens, I said, do you remember this guy's name? And we all talked about, oh, this guy's weird. Yeah, he was kind of the weird one, the out of place one. It just did not fit in the group. Didn't think, nothing was wrong with him per se, in terms of having an intellectual disability. He's just kid. Okay?
Yeah.
My kids were great examples. That's my daughter back there, who's holding the hot glue gun on one of the teenagers. He's going to glue his shirt together with the hot glue gun. Crazy kids. Here's that kid. Yeah. Let's go ahead and ride this cow. I don't know very many cow riding activities there are. Well, you know what? He learned a lesson. He was scared to death. Okay,
but he was there. One of the other Pathfinders had dared him, because the cow's there and they're daring him. Oh, go hop on him.
Yeah.
Get on the cow.
Yeah. So nothing happened to this kid, but he was scared to death, and he learned a lesson. Okay? Yeah. The rope was stuck underneath the boat. Yeah, so go ahead. Erica, go ahead and hold my feet while I go underneath and
get the rope.
Okay? And it happens. The Lord is good.
Yep.
Yeah. You think? Okay.
Yep.
Here we were in Navajo country during the wintertime, and they found an old slide that was thrown off to the side, and they said, hey, why don't we make a little sled out of it and pull it behind the car? Okay, but to be safe about it, quote, unquote, to be safe about it, why don't we have a truck drive behind it just to let people know that we're doing this wonderful activity? The things that we think about, our own definition of safety. Like I said, God is still good. Nothing happened, but they, of course, the kids remember this. You know, we didn't go very fast, but it was still dangerous. Okay. Yep. The kids, the teens, they were doing a pyramid in the house. Yeah, kids will do what
Yeah.
they want to do, and
Well, it's okay if you're in a gym with mats,
Yeah.
but in the house where there's furniture.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Well, we cleared those out, but you know, can you imagine somebody's shoulder, somebody's elbow, and if they fell, and typically what happens, they would fall all together, and all that weight would come down.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, that did not happen. At least they were. God is good. Yeah. Anyway, managing emergencies.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, okay, what happens when you have an emergency? And so, of course, you know, you have the emergency, and then you have to obviously get the assistance that you need, communicate, and then you have to investigate. Okay? So when we look at emergencies, the first thing you want to do to deal with an emergency, call 911 if you need to. You know, get whatever assistance that you need is appropriate. And then you have to communicate with the parents. And so you have a responsibility to make contact with the parents as soon as you know you can appropriately, and let them know, because then the parents can be involved in the decision making as to what should be done. If you're ever in a situation where there is a death, you pray that that never happens, but a death notification should never be done over the phone. And if you have a serious injury, you know, you should have a professional or contact the church. I mean, we went on a hike up in Big Bear, and one of our Pathfinders got lost. We couldn't find him. He had wandered off. And I wasn't there. I was at home, and Don called me, and of course, and he had called search and rescue to find this kid. So I immediately called the church. I got the church board then got quickly notified. They went and notified the mom, because that was a pretty serious, you know, we have a missing child. We don't know what the outcome.
It was getting dark.
It was getting dark.
And it was getting very cold.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and so when I immediately contacted the church. The pastor went over directly to the home of the Pathfinder, and of course they brought the mom down to the church there because we were communicating. Fortunately, they found him. Search and rescue located him, and he was not hurt.
at least he was found. Another thing, in death notifications or serious injury notification, it should come from your leader. It should come from your director or whatever. Mm-hmm. Don't give that responsibility to somebody else to do it, unless they're not able to, for whatever, they were not available. You know, make sure that you have an emergency action plan, a notification plan that you can follow through. Okay?
And you have to know who to contact, where they're going to be. Because sometimes, you know, you might have a parent's number, but maybe they're going to be inaccessible and there's another way to reach them.
Yeah.
And so every time we had an outing, we would ask them, what is the best way to contact you while we're gone if there's an emergency? Not that we hope we don't need to, but, you know, you want to have that.
Have any of you been to Oatman? Oatman is over by Lake Mojave, out in the desert. It's out by Lake Mojave, Arizona. Anyway, Oatman is a tourist place. They have the
Western type.
the gunfights and all this. They also have a hangman's noose out there, just like an old Western. Of course, what had happened? One of our teams decided to put the hangman's noose around his neck.
For a picture.
Okay? Yeah, just for a picture. Yeah, we were all there, but we weren't watching, turned away. And just so happened, one of the teens saw that he was in trouble. He was trying to get his head out of the noose and would begin to fight. Well, he went unconscious. Okay, he went unconscious, but one of the teens grabbed his legs, pushed him up, and the other teen got his head out of the noose. But of course, he was kind of topsy-turvy. He fell and he hit his head on the concrete wall that was there. So he just knocked himself out. Anyway, that was the most scariest thing that I'd ever do and notify. Because, we were out in the river. So I called his parents and told them, how nice can you say what had happened, Your son hung himself. There's no way of getting around it. This is what he had done. However, he was found. One of the teens got him off. Two of the teens got him off, and he subsequently woke up. Very fortunate. And we asked her, what do you want us to do? We can take him to the hospital. We have all these medical personnel. He says, and he's doing okay? He goes, yes. Do you know what you need to do? He goes, yes, we do. So every hour on the hour, I slept with him, woke him up, and made sure he responded appropriately, because we knew about cerebral edema after a head injury, and he did very well. But at the same time, we told the teens, this does not go anywhere. Okay, you don't go back to the church and say, guess what happened?
Or
No.
don't post this on social media.
Don't post this. You know what? Right away, all the pictures are gone. Nobody said anything afterwards. I said, thank you very much, guys.
Because it was embarrassing for the
embarrassing.
teen. It was,
Yeah, and of
Yeah.
course, who his parents represented as well. And everybody knew him, knew his family, and said, no, this would be devastating, so it stays here with us. We all know. So, God is good.
and so when an accident does happen, you do need to, once you've provided the emergency treatment that's needed, you need to notify and fill out an incident report, and you have to have that so that risk management can be involved, and they'll cover it's just like notifying your any insurance of an accident. Do not speak to media, or do not start posting on social media. And that's really hard. If you have all your Pathfinders, everybody's got phones. And so everybody wants to tell, word travels fast. Incidents like that should not be spread on social media. It is really easy when you have an incident to assume fault or say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have seen you. I should have." Remember, there used to be a TV show on, and the detectives would come in and they would say, "Ma'am, just the facts, please. Just the facts," okay? And that's what you want to keep in mind. That's what you're reporting, just the facts, okay? Don't worry about fault. Don't worry about trying to investigate that. Someone else will take care of that. Your responsibility is to provide the emergency treatment, communicate with the family, and then your incident report is just the facts of what happened. The incident reports, again, they're at adventistrisk.org, and you can go online there to complete any type of an incident report for accidents that happen.
You know, don't wait for something to happen. Run it through your staff and your older teens who's going to be responsible in monitoring and supervision. Run through it again. You know, go through as a group and say, hey, what happens if this happens? What would you do? So when something should happens, oh boy, you activate your emergency activation plan beautifully. Everybody knows what they need to do.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what they need to do. You know, so when Adventist risk management becomes involved and they say, hey, did you do this? Yes, we did. Did you guys think of this? Yes, we did. And what did you do? We did this, this, and this, and this. And they'll think, oh, you guys got it together. We'll take care of it from here. You go and take care of each other from now on. Marion?
Okay, and so when you can move on to the next. So when you look at you know, when accidents and things happen, anytime you have an event, an activity, you always, at the end of your activity, should look back, review what happened. Do we need to make changes for next time?
Oh, yeah.
What did we learn from that activity? That is all part of planning, okay? You plan, you have the event, and then you have to have a review afterwards.
Always do that. With every activity, with every outing, we always met. What worked, what didn't work, what should we change? You know, what am I doing wrong? What did you like? What did you didn't like? Did everything work okay? All right.
Okay.
You know.
And then we look at any questions?
Any questions?
Right now. I know
Okay.
we covered a lot of information.
Okay, who's going to Gillette? You guys are going? You feel pretty comfortable?
We're planning on it, but we had our trailer started a few months ago. So we're praying, we're trying to get everything together.
Mhm.
Yeah. It happens.
Okay. Put up the slide that has the risk management resources.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so you have those resources. Okay, and then the next slide. Show the next slide. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't wait too long. If you need help planning for Gillette, what to expect for, you can always go to Gillette Camporee on the internet, and it'll give you checklists. You can go to the AdventistRisk.org. There's a checklist for all that. Plan, you know, between now and the time you leave. And, the time you leave, what you're going to do going, what you're going to do coming back, and when you come back. Plan it all out. Don't wait for something to happen. Ask those what-if questions and give it to the board and say, listen, is there something that we're missing? You know? And
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
give it to you.
And just remember, you know, who is our flock? You know, the children, their parents. We're a ministry program. And, you know, God has given us a very precious responsibility. And you know, sometimes you think, oh, risk management, that's just too much work. You know, it's just part of being diligent in cherishing the children that we have a responsibility for.
So anybody have gone to pass Oshkosh? You guys, okay? And you're going to Gillette? Yeah, don't wait. You know, it's almost kind of late in terms of planning. But, you know, within the next week, 2 weeks, decide if you're going to go. You got a very big, major planning to do in so many areas. You know, and like I said, if you have any questions, if you need help, reach out. Reach out. And you know, there is a time in the thing where you might have to say, no, this is unsafe. But also ask yourself, what can we do to make it safe? get the church behind you. You know, so you're not just a volunteer. You know, because anybody who has gone camping, Adventures or Pathfinders, or even gone to, they know, oh, bless your soul. Bless for all your help. Thank you for your service in going out there. You have no idea what it costs, but you know what? The benefits outweigh. But you know, God gave us the strength, the courage, and the diligence to be diligent. You know. So anyway, any questions regarding anything? Oh, you want to tell them about the drones?
Well, some of the, some of the safety issues that are being put together for the Gillette Oshkosh. No drones are going to be permitted. Now, there will be some, licensed people that are authorized to have drones, but Pathfinder clubs and cannot bring drones. Obviously, no pets.
No pets.
Can come to the camporee. Sonia's an exception.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you.
Because she's a service dog, so, yeah, but pets, they. Well, I'm gonna get her a little vest that is going to say, she's a master guide dog.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, any more questions? Anybody? Yes.
The people that went through and had incidents,
Yeah.
did they continue on being Pathfinders? Or
Some did.
Yeah.
Some did.
like, have they been into like other churches or clubs and gave them their testimonies and said what happened?
Probably not, especially if the result was not a good result. It's like I said, whenever you have a claim that has an injury or significant, result, boy, it's sad to say it plants some very sad
Yeah.
sad harbors.
But that one boy that jumped on the back of the car,
Yeah.
he has recovered, done well, and he's at one of our Adventist colleges and
Yeah.
did very well. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just to be clear, or to, I guess, understand more of the process. When a claim like one of the ones that we've seen has happened where it has not been covered by the insurance, are the parents paying that out of pocket typically, or how is that managed?
Usually what happens in those situations, because we are a Christian ministry, oftentimes the conference will become involved, and then the conference will make a decision to provide some financial support to the family. The church, and so the church board can all certainly be involved and make those decisions. And so a lot of times, even above and beyond what risk management provides, the church and the conference will often step in and also assist, just because of the need.
Well, and yeah, because those are bankrupting amounts. at
Oh,
times.
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, see, and that's why, risk management, you have your policy limits. Risk management has an excess policy above, so that those large amounts, there are 2 layers of insurance that are covering those expenses.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would bankrupt the church.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's,
Yep.
yeah, always plan for the worst.
Yep. Yep.
Anything else, folks? Yeah. Yes.
Not a question, but yeah, this presentation was very helpful as leaders. Yeah.
What I can say though, in terms of looking back, and I've said it multiple times here, God is good.
Amen.
with
Yeah.
all the things that have happened, even if we didn't, whether we planned or didn't plan with it, he's always watching out.
Yeah.
Always watching out. And we're fortunate that even though we've had an awful lot of things happen in our club, almost everything you could imagine except for death.
And
But
there are, there are things that can happen
yeah,
in just about anything you do. Just
Mhm.
stupid stuff that can happen. I mean, even when you're not being foolish, accidents can happen.
Yep.
And it's like, and then you hear about it and you go, oh, it's very easy to go, oh, we just should never do anything like that. And I think we have to be careful too, not to be so fearful.
that you don't do
You
anything.
can't do anything
Yeah.
because everything's a high risk. And like I said, we don't want to be foolish. At the same time, we need to keep a balance
Yeah.
there
Yeah,
of respect for what can and
yeah,
then becoming totally fearful of everything.
yeah. A lot of the times I'm doing things right on the spot. So I'm asking myself, okay, I didn't plan for this, Thank you. I didn't plan for this, but what can we do to keep them safe? What do we need to do? Do we need to do an ad hoc staff meeting? Yes. On both sides? Yes. One of my Pathfinders said, oh, I saw a friend that I haven't seen for 13 years, and they invited me over to lunch at Oshkosh. Okay? Do I say, yeah, go ahead? Not thinking, you know what, there's 65,000 people here. How in the world are we going to get together? How do I, if something happened to her on one of their trips, can you, and one of my greatest fears was having to call the parents and say, your daughter, I let them go with so-and-so, a family that you remember, but something happened. Well, that wasn't planned, but what did you as a director at that time put into place to make sure you had the communication? What if something happened? How do I reach you? How do you reach me? What are you going to do? And how long are you going to be, all of those kinds of questions. What I ended up doing was, no, you're not going to go. Secondly, it's not going to be fair to all the other Pathfinders here in our group because they say, oh, what about, how come you let her go and you're not letting me go? I found a friend that I haven't seen in 25 years.
Let me go somewhere.
Yeah, and how come no. And that was a decision that we made as Pathfinder staff because we didn't have enough staff to do that. I said, no, we can't. There's so many Pathfinders here. We cannot risk that. No problem if we're all in one group together on Saturday and we're sitting and we're watching the morning service. Not a problem. I know where you're at. I can see you. When you're done, you come back. I want to meet your director. I want to meet your friend's director. So a lot of things. Yeah. Anyway, let's pray. Our Father in heaven, again, we thank you so much for the opportunity, the knowledge, the courage, the wisdom, the presence of the Holy Spirit that keeps our minds and our hearts open. Lord, as we plan for whatever event, outing that we have, and especially in within the next year of going to Gillette, there's so many of us. I know that you will keep us safe, guiding us and protecting us, and provide the staff and those who are planning for this event with the knowledge, the information, the resources, and the support from our families, our church family as well. Watch over us as we leave this church. Provide us with safety. Bring us back here next Sabbath. In thy name, amen.
Amen.